From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to Beat the Champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Jamestown with Janelle and Sue. My name is Paul, and it's another edition of Beat the Champ. Or, Sue, should we start calling this show Beat the Jag? Because Chuck Jagodzinski's on another run and looks like he's ready to stick around a little while.
Yeah, well, like you said, this is where his run started, and he lines up just so nicely to this place, and it just feeds into his game, and he's got it going on, right? We got the fist pumps, we got it going on with Chuck today. 3 in a row for Chuck Jagodzinski. He'll be our first bowler off today. A win in the first match gives Chuck the overall lead for most wins on Beat the Champ since we started 3+ years ago, and I know that's on his mind, too. I know, and Mike kind of was pulling away from him because Chuck didn't make the show last month, and he was getting a little haughty about it, but yeah. Look, don't look behind you because here comes Chuck. The rivalry between Chuck Jagodzinski and Mike Zarcona has been great to watch. 3 challengers to Chuck Jagodzinski today: Raymond Textor, Tim Frenz, and Rusty Martin. They're going to try to put up a challenge. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it won't be, because last week our big thing was who can make the adjustments, and Chuck was the one that was able to. Maybe that's because he's been the most successful guy, but we'll see what the 3 today have to bring.
All right, might be a fun week, might be a lot more Chuck Jagodzinski. We'll find out. Let's get rolling. First opponent for Chuck Jagodzinski is Jamestown's own Raymond Textor. We'll tell you about Ray in just a moment, or actually we'll let Jim Mee, who's joining us here, the owner of the Jamestown Bowling Company, who knows Ray well, tell us a little about him. But here you go, Chuck Jagodzinski, as always, a strike to start off with. And we talked about this last week, Sue. There's a bit of an intimidation factor that goes along with it. And I know it's only the first of frame and it's only one, but him starting with a strike kind of sets a tone. Yeah, and he's got an intensity about him, too, that says he means business. And, you know, he's got a reputation. He's the winningest bowler out there. All right, so Jim, tell us a little bit about what we need to know about 60-year-old Ray Textor from nearby Kennedy, New York.
Okay, well, he should give this guy a match. Ray's been bowling really well. I was telling Sue and you earlier that he's won the New York State Senior Masters the last 2 years, which is, it's hard to win that once, talk about it twice in a row. And he just, he averages, almost 230, bowls a lot of senior regional tournaments, PBA stuff, practices more than most people do. That's kind of a lost art anymore because it's so easy to strike anymore. Nobody practices, but he does. Just a nice, simple game, and he should be able to match up against Chuck here, unless he just keeps stringing 8 or 9 in a row all the time.
And like we talked about, if he's won at a high New York State level, then maybe there isn't quite as much intimidation factor against Chuck Jagodzinski.
Yeah, because he probably hasn't bowled Chuck before. But Ray, he's pretty unflappable.
Yeah.
I mean, his nickname is the Bowling God, and how he got that was. I have a neon on the front of my building. It doesn't work as good as it used to, but a bowler, neon throws a ball and it strikes every time. So that's why you call him the Bowling God. That's the Bowling God, and then he's the second one. I didn't give him that nickname, but I don't know who did. But
all right, Chuck Jagodzinski off to another typical Chuck start with 3 strikes to begin with. So already the work cut out for Ray Textor, and as Jim mentioned, current 2-time New York State Senior Masters champion, finished 2nd at the PBA Regional in Pottsville, Pennsylvania back in September, and finished in the top 10 at the PBA Regional back in Schenectady, New York in September. So that tells me, Sue, that he's used to competing at a high level. Well, preparation is a big part of this game, and repetition. And if he's practicing and competing in all of these tournaments, then there isn't much that could flap him because he's seen it all, he's prepared, and for him it's just going to be about really keeping up with Chuck's scoring pace. I mean,
right.
No matter what, you have to match up and you have to carry. So,
obviously Jimmy's going to know these lanes pretty well, right?
Yeah, he bowls here in league once a week, and then he subs once in a while in a couple other leagues.
All right, well, Ray's doing what he needs to do, and in the meantime, so is Chuck. As we mentioned, 30th appearance on Beat the Champ for Chuck. 34 wins, 16 losses. Those 34 wins are tied with Mike Zarcone for the most here on our show, and he's coming in with a 3-match winning streak. He swept the week last week, and not only did he sweep the week, he averaged 258 in those 3 wins.
Yep, that's the first thing he checked is what was my total.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to know what his series was.
He wanted to know what his series was.
There's Janelle Saban in the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, keeping you up to date on the results of this match. And Ring Around the 10 will end the strike run for Chuck Jagodzinski.
It's funny because that's how Chuck's mind works. It's not just about winning. He's also tabulating in his head his scores. So it's an added motivation for him to keep striking because he wants these numbers. And
and that's a rather uncharacteristic miss. The knockout punch spare ball swings and misses that time, and that doesn't happen very often. So now here's an opportunity for an experienced bowler like Ray Textor to say, okay, you're going to open the door for me, Chuck? I'm going to
You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind. It's exactly what I'm thinking.
There you go. That's the way you respond. This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV. 2 in a row for Ray Textor.
That's where you will see these experienced bowlers, experienced tournament bowlers that have won a lot of matches rise to the occasion when they get an opening.
He's a regular in Jim's Thursday night league here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. He's about the 3rd or 4th bowler on this show that's a regular in that Thursday night league. Must be a pretty good league.
Yeah, it's the best league. It's the best league in Jamestown.
Is that the doubles?
Yes.
A bit of an unfortunate miss there for Ray, and he'll have a little work to do with the spare. 2 pins staring him down. And he will make quick work of that. So it's 3 strikes and 3 spares for Ray Textor to get him started. Chuck Jagodzinski struck on the first 4, missed the spare in frame 5, and see if he goes right back to work. I could tell he didn't like that one. We can always tell from Chuck's body language whether he likes the shot or not.
It's amazing because it looked great to me.
Yeah, the only thing that looked a little different to me was he looked like he tugged it into the oil a little more, so his angle was not as good.
Right.
That's why he left the solid 10 versus the weak 10 over here. I think just because this lane's tighter, he's gonna leave. That seems to be the only thing that's stopping him once in a while.
Well, his 31 pin lead has dwindled down to 11, and this is as close as anybody's really got to him.
And he's hit a bit of a slump, a stretch here where he's struggling a little bit. That's 3 frames in a row where not everything is done the way he wanted it. And get out of the way, sweeper. Here comes Chuck. And that's the 2nd time in this match that he has missed the spare.
Well, that's sometimes where his speed to get up there.
He needed to wait a second, didn't
Right.
he?
Sometimes on the spares you need to maybe regroup from a bad shot and not just be right back up there with that bad shot still lingering in your mind.
Exactly. And we've all done that.
Boy, a strike there would have really changed this match.
It really would have.
That pin kind of bounced up and over the top of the 10.
He gave that a little room. He put that out into the dry a little bit, trying to get a little bit more hit, and got almost a little bit too much hit.
That was a great shot, but just
Came in a little bit too sharp and wrapped that 6 around the 10. All right.
that's one thing you notice about Ray too. He doesn't use a spare ball. He just
Flattens it out.
He just flattens out his strike ball, which is that's when you know somebody knows how to bowl, because he's that talented.
So Ray slides over to lane 17. This is his 8th frame. Back-to-back spares. And that was right in the pocket where it needed to be.
Okay, so Ray has a 3-pin advantage here with a strike up, which he needs to have. Putting Chuck in a situation that he has to strike. he's had to move in, and it's changed his angle just a hair.
Yeah, that was exactly the same shot he threw last time on 18, but the ball is so straight to the pocket that he lost his carry.
Yep, because his angle's changed.
And I was to say, he almost did it again.
Holy moly.
Almost missed another single pin spare. So here's Chuck Jagodzinski's first 8 frames. 4 strikes, open, spare, open, spare. And there's back to striking. I think we've seen sometimes with Chuck as he does tend to get down on himself a little bit, and that's where the quick throw comes up, and sometimes he knows how to put a lot of strikes together. He sometimes puts a lot of non-strike frames together sometimes.
Wow, big shot right there.
Not sure if you noticed or not, but Ray is now using 2 different balls.
I did not. Oh no, you're right.
It was like 2 shots ago. He switched balls on this lane.
All right, so 10th frame now for Ray Textor.
On the 2-8?
Yeah.
This lane goes a little longer by all accounts.
That's 3 in a row for Ray.
Yeah, I told you. It's a bowling guy.
The bowling guy, right?
Well, we said as soon as Chuck gave him an opening with all his experience, that's when those people know how to take advantage. You know, when you're a seasoned bowler, you're not intimidated by that. You see that opening and off you go.
Exactly.
He threw that awesome. That was probably one of his best shots today.
You know, and his game and his release are so simple. There's like, you know, and he can repeat.
Yep.
Because of that reason, you know. Not the only reason.
So Ray Textor with 4 strikes in a row. Can he finish it out with 5 and finish out this match? He most certainly can. And it's Ray Textor that is going to come up with the victory over Chuck Jagodzinski. Ray Textor from nearby Kennedy, New York, a regular here at the Jamestown Bowling Company, comes up with a huge win. We get to see another match out of Ray. We'll talk to Chuck when we return. It's Beat the Champ in Jamestown, New York. More right after this. The win streak for Chuck Jagodzinski comes to an end thanks to the bowling of Ray Textor, but what happened in that middle stretch there, particularly with the 2 spares, Chuck?
I missed the 10 right, so I got scared, and I pulled it in the 6-10, which I usually never do.
Chuck Jagodzinski doesn't get scared.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to get by the gutter because it falls in. So I just pulled the second one. So that's the match right there, you know, 2 misses.
All right. So now you're tied with Zarco, and that's going to linger for a couple of weeks now, isn't it?
Yeah, because he's a lot better at Tonawanda than I am. And in this case, everybody doesn't love Raymond.
You've had like 3 lines you've been working on for like weeks that you've launched on us here. I don't even know if you deserve to give him any of the money after that one.
I more than deserve it.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Well, I still love Raymond. He's my customer. So. Anyway, here's some money for you. And
thank you.
Congratulations.
All right. Always fun when Chuck Jagodzinski's on the show. We always get him here for more than a couple of weeks, and I'm sure we'll see him back soon. Got another match coming your way. It's next on Beat the Champ. So Ray Textor will try to ride a little bit of the momentum and the wave of energy from the big win over Chuck Jagodzinski into his next match against Tim Frenz. Tim is making his 3rd appearance here on Beat the Champ. He has yet to win, and that may have more to do with the fact that his previous 2 matches were both against Chuck Jagodzinski. Yes, the quiet, shy, never attracts attention to himself, Tim Frenz. Good start for him. Last time we saw him was at the Rapids Bowling Center when he was wearing equally loud pants. He's he's now our pants guy, right?
Yeah, he did the same thing at the qualifier. He had on it was like a black outfit, but the pants were kind of wild.
Yeah.
In case anybody's concerned, during the summer months, he does have shorts just like that.
Of course he does. Of course he does. And it was funny. We've gotten to know Tim enough now to know that he now knows to wear different pants to every time he's on the show, because he does not want anyone accusing him of recycling the pants at all for his appearances.
Well, he's got enough to choose from, so.
All right, so both guys off to good starts with strikes in frame number one, and again, it was fun to watch Ray Textor. And Jim, you've seen him hundreds of times. It was our first time, but he's just a pro. There's certain people that you see in whatever sport they partake in where the ultimate compliment is he's just a pro, and I don't mean that professional. I just mean this guy knows exactly what he's doing.
Well, definitely, he takes his game very seriously. Like I said, not a lot of bowlers, at least around here, do a lot of practice anymore, but he's religious about it, especially he's going to nationals in a couple of weeks in Vegas, so we put out a couple harder oil patterns to practice on, because that's what you're going to catch out there. So, but he's very serious.
Nice shot.
Right now Tim is matching him shot for shot so far. Tim Frenz is 30 years old. He's from Williamsville, New York. Full-time occupation as a photographer. Also works in the pro shop at Brad Angelo Lane, so he's around bowling, drills his own bowling balls. Been bowling since he's about 5 years old, so this has been a big part of his life. And 226 average tells you he's pretty good at it.
And we'll also see him in the fourth show with Justin Schwab, who we saw a couple weeks ago at Transit Lanes as well.
Good pin action there for Tim to get his third strike. Yeah, we've got a doubles show coming up for you next week. This is our last competition week. Then we're going to have some fun with the doubles. Give everybody a little preview of the doubles show for next week, Jim.
Yes, I don't have the names in front of me, but I will say that it's going to work like the high qualifying team that qualified for the doubles is going to bowl against the number 4 team, and then the two is going to bowl against 3, and then the winners of each one of those matches, will bowl for the final.
Right.
And it'll be a Baker style, which is, one bowler will bowl 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. The other bowler bowls 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So.
Gotcha. And I know some of the bowlers that we had on our show 2 weeks ago, Lewandowski and Rubrecht, are going to be back on the show as well too. So we got some good names for you for next week's show, our doubles competition here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. 2 strikes and a spare for Ray Textor to start his first 3 frames. The 60-year-old from nearby Kennedy, New York. Full-time occupation as a machine operator at Monofrax. But a regular here at the JBC with a nice 227 average. And despite what Chuck Jagodzinski said, here in Jamestown, everybody loves Raymond.
Just one guy doesn't.
I think Jagodzinski's got writers now for his material and stuff. His priority number 1 is making the show, and then priority number 2 is having a bunch of lines ready to go. He was giving me grief about missing a couple of shows, and a couple.
Oh my gosh. Okay, don't get me started.
I'm here more than you are, Peck. That's what Jagodzinski said. Apparently that hour and a half drive down from Lancaster, you got a lot of time to come up with material.
Tell me, better hope he can say that to you in 6 months.
Yeah, that's right. So after 2 strikes, it's 2 straight spares for Ray Textor, and here's Tim Frenz, who's perfect through 3, and a wobble, but a 7-pin won't go down.
What I find interesting with Ray is,
excuse me.
Let's do it.
He finished up that game using 2 different bowling balls. Mm-hmm. Now he's not doing that anymore.
He went back to one ball?
He went back to the original ball. He was using, the ball he's using on 18 exclusively, but he must have found something in practice where he thought he could stick with the same ball on both lanes as this game.
And a good spare for Tim in the 4th frame. Tim bowls regularly on Wednesday nights at Transit Lanes and regularly at Brad Angelo Lanes on their Thursday night leagues at 13 career 300 games and a high 796 series. And that's one of his nicest rolls of the afternoon here for a strike in the 5th frame. So Jim, you were talking, and you and I were talking a little bit about something Sue and I have talked a lot about, which is the weight of the bowling balls. We've tried to focus a little more on that, and of course most people are using 15-pounders, but you said you just switched. Why don't you tell everybody what the results have been of your switch to a bit of a lighter bowling ball?
Okay, well, I went from 15 to 14. A couple reasons. I mean, I'm getting older. I felt like I wasn't making good shots like I used to, say, going back, say, like 10 years ago. So I went to 14, throwing the ball way better. It's easier on my body. Still carries equally as well. So, it's kind of like a win-win situation for me, and it turned out really good. I mean, I averaged 1 pin less this season in my league than I did last year. So.
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
Jim, is the mile per hour one of those indicators for maybe when it's time to make that kind of a change?
Yeah, it is one of them. I could just, like I said, I can just physically throw the ball better, and it's so noticeable to me that, and I can make, better shots in a row, without having to, labor from the weight.
Oh boy.
Yeah, as much as Tim. Oh, it did go down.
The jump helped.
A little pounding on the approach here might have sent some shockwaves down the lane.
Lucky you ate that lunch.
So that's a nice break we haven't seen anything like that in a long time here. That was a good 3 seconds of
as long
wobbling?
as the machine does not touch it. If the machine comes down and it all makes contact with the pin, then that wouldn't count. But the machine, slow racks here, did not touch that pin. It fell on its own.
The slow racks wound up being huge there, didn't it?
I'll tell you this, Ray, every time somebody misses, he just starts striking.
Yeah, he does. It's such a sign of a polished, accomplished competitor.
That he is.
That's 3 in a row for Ray Textor. Trying to take a little control of this match right now and take advantage of that open in the 6th frame from Tim. And that was his own ring around the 10 there. A little disappointing for Ray.
Well, we got a good match going here. It's 9 pins, but the advantage on the strikes keep going back and forth. So by Tim striking on his shot and Ray not striking on this one, now Tim can go ahead in the match if he can double.
And a good solid spare pickup in the 8th frame for Ray Textor. So here's Tim's opportunity to take the lead back. Tim looking for his first Beat the Champ victory. Boy, there's lots of pins flying back there, but not always exactly where you need them to be.
And you would think that angle of entry would be pretty good. He's not coming in late behind the pin.
That looked like a good shot. I can't explain it.
And that was 19 mile per hour roll down the lanes. That was pretty solid, pretty strong from Tim Frenz.
So where are the cameras that rate the speed?
On the thick cap, you can see one of them.
So it's further down the lane?
Yeah, it's like.
Oh, okay. So that is measuring the speed just before it hits the pins.
Yep. It's also the cycle. It's what it's what tells the machine to cycle. There's a little time delay, and then it's got that, and then the speed.
But by then your ball is normally decelerating, isn't it?
It depends on what part of the lane. Like if you catch in the dry, it slows it down. If you keep it in the middle, sometimes
I'm
it'll
trying to
speed
make
it up.
excuses as to why mine is so slow. I'm only in the low 14s.
Yeah, well, I'm not much. I'm probably like a half a mile an hour faster than you. I mean, and if I try to throw any harder, I'm all over the place. So.
But as we've talked about, Jim, much like in baseball or really any other sport, speed doesn't always equal success.
Exactly. Speed hurts you a lot of times. Too much speed is worse than, you know.
Right, because it'll actually never read the lane. You want your ball to read the lane at some point. If you have too much ball speed, and Rocket Rob toned down his ball speed because of that, because you're shooting right through your break point. It's just delaying the ball reacting to the lane. So, especially on these synthetic surfaces that already, you know, have more skin.
Yeah.
It's good for you on a wood surface.
Definitely. More friction.
All right, so we're down to the 10th frame for both guys here, and this is still a tight match. After spare in the 9th for Ray Textor, here he comes with a 10th. And it didn't quite hit where he wanted to.
He tried to go for that swisher hit because the high flush hit was just not carrying. So the swisher hit was carrying. So I could see him trying to just hit a little bit lighter to get that swish, and
yeah, he never.
came a little light.
It looked to me like he never got it to the hook. You know, the hook spot just kind of stayed in the oil, and that back end's tight on that lane. So.
Yep.
So one more on the fill ball here for Ray Textor to post his score up. And then it'll be up to Tim to see what he can't do with it, as our winner will take on another Jamestown Bowling Company regular in Rusty Martin for our final match of the day. Strike here would be big for Ray, and he won't get it.
Okay, so Tim needs the first hit.
That lane is drives me crazy, especially on a TV.
So there's your 213.
Just a re-rack, it's okay.
There's your 213 final score posted up, thanks to Janelle and the Castellone scoreboard. And a chance to win here for Tim Frenz. All right, so what's going through your mind here? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking he has to strike.
Okay.
He only needs 7.
Is that what he's thinking?
Oh, it's what he knows.
Yeah.
He only needs 7 on his second shot. He doesn't need to double, but he definitely needs this one first.
All right, so pressure's on Tim Frenz. A strike in order to stay alive to win this match. And he gets what he needs.
Shot.
It was a great shot because he's 10-pinned on this lane almost every time. So he has to do something different. Look like tried to get it in to be a little bit more high flush.
So a chance to win it right here for Tim Frenz. Gonna take a little time here, cool off.
Needs at least 7 on
Line
this
it up.
first ball.
7 pins to win it, 7 pins or anything better than that. And he'll get all 10, and that will give Tim Frenz the victory. So Tim gets his first Beat the Champ win. A nice effort again by Ray Textor to push him right down to the 10th frame, but it's a victory for Tim and advances on to our final match of this week here in Jamestown. Sue and I will come back. We'll talk to Ray and we'll get you ready for that next match. It is a WIN here at the JBC. More of BTC right after this. Well, Ray, this match didn't go the way you wanted to, but let's go back to the win over Chuck Jagodzinski. He had been bowling so well, he can be very intimidating to bowl against him. Take me through that win over Chuck and what you felt like you did well.
Well, I had to use a different ball on each lane because 17 was kind of squirrely. I had a good look on both lanes, but when you're bowling against someone like Chuck, you just got to try to strike as often as you can. And fortunately, he had a few misses in there that helped me out a little bit.
Yeah, and
sometimes that happens.
So what happened in the match with Tim? Where did this one slip away from you?
I just had to move just a hair deeper, and then I lost carry there, started leaving a few more 10 pins, and Tim bowled a great game and needed 1 or 2 more strikes in there that I didn't get. So, but I bowled good. I never had an open the whole time, so I'm happy with how I did.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
all you
nice.
can do.
Pretty nice Beat the Champ debut for you there, Ray. Why do I feel like whatever Jim's going to hand you here is going to wind up back in his hands?
I'm sure
eventually,
will.
anyway, right?
It's going to make you feel better. I just had one question. Like, why did you go back to just using one ball and not staying with the
As
other
soon
ball?
as I moved a little deeper, it was a better look with just one ball than with the one that was a little flatter on the back end.
Makes sense.
Another.
Just curious.
His color commentary is better than yours, so I'm going to sign him up for the
I know,
next
he's
show.
pretty good.
So he is pretty good. Good job here by Ray. We got one more match coming up. Rusty Martin and Tim Frenz. It's next on Beat the Champ. It's Tim and Rusty, match number 3 here to wrap up our 3rd week of competition at the Jamestown Bowling Company. Rusty Martin from right here in Jamestown will try to knock off Tim Frenz. This is his 2nd appearance on our show for Rusty Martin. Last time we were here was the last time we saw him. He winds up losing a year ago in his 1 appearance here at the Jamestown Bowling Company. And Rusty brings us the lefty challenge
Right.
here as well too.
Second lefty here only in Jamestown. First one being our first week.
Jimmy has been with us all show. He is the owner here of the Jamestown Bowling Company, which means you know Rusty Martin pretty well. Tell us what we need to know about our 34-year-old challenger from right here in Jamestown.
Well, Rusty, he was out of bowling for a few years. Then he came back and he got some new equipment. Started taking the game a little more seriously. He did have a 300 game this year in one of the leagues, I recall. And he's starting to get into a little more, tournaments. He's doing a little bit of travel, like Erie, Buffalo, but he's definitely taking the game more seriously.
And he bowls regularly in the league here on Tuesday nights at the Jamestown Bowling Company. So we'll see if Rusty can utilize a little home lane advantage here. Remember, the winner of this match is going to advance in 2 weeks to our next stop, which is Tonawanda Lanes, back up a little closer to Buffalo and Western New York. Tim Frenz off to a good start with a strike.
So for now, Tim has discovered that keeping the ball in has increased his carry percentage. So he's really just lined up to almost be straight up like 15, 16.
So now, Jim, Ray Textor said something interesting to us when we talked to him after the last match, that, and you followed up with a question to him about using a different ball on each lane. How unusual is that? What would be the prompt for someone to want to do that? And I think it's pretty clear to everybody that lanes can be dramatically different, so it's not that big of a surprise, is it?
No, not really. I mean, you have to really be aware of your ball reaction, and and have the confidence that, and the knowledge of your equipment, that you can grab another ball and fix the problem, hopefully. But in practice for the following match after he won, he found something with the 1 ball, so he decided it would be easier to stick with the 1 and just play him a little different.
Nice strike in the 2nd frame for Rusty Martin. Have you done that before, Sue? Have you ever used different balls on different lanes when you've been in a tournament setting?
Often.
Often. So it's
Yes,
not unusual at all.
As a matter of fact, we bowled city tournament Thursday, and we all used the 4 of us girls all used different balls on each lane. It eventually evened out a little bit, and we were able to go to 1. But in the beginning, when they were drastic, we had to use 2 different balls.
How easy or hard is it? How much practice does it take on that lane for you to decide that one is much different than the other?
Well, no doubt the balls that you're switching to, or that you're using in each lane, don't vary all that much. One's going to pick up a little sooner than the other. They're not necessarily like you're trying to play the lanes the same, so that you're not like opening it up one and playing straight up on the other, something like that. So sometimes with bowling balls, you can keep your motion the same, but the ball will read the lane a little different, but it's fairly subtle.
How much do you think, Jim, that for a guy like Ray, who knows these lanes probably as well as anybody that's bowled on this show the month, how much did that help him maybe get to that decision, or sort of recognize how different the two sides of the lanes were?
Well, I think, like I said, he knows the house really well, and the surface up here on the high end of the house, 1724, is a little bit different than the other, although you can't tell from here cosmetically, but those are a little bit older and these are a little bit newer, just because of how we put the synthetics in. So these do play a little tighter than the rest of the house. So he knows that.
Was this place all built at the same time? I know we have had that's come up at other bowling centers where there was expansion at some point, and that changed the characteristics of one side versus the other.
It wasn't all built at the same time. I think I went, like years ago, I went 12. It used to be a 12-lane center, then they must have figured, well, there's more business, so they built another 12 on. Well, we're talking like in the 60s, probably the 60s, early 70s. But the reason for this here is this was a wood house, like when we bought it, and we owned another house that had 16 synthetic in it. So, but they were still in good shape. So when we sold the building, we take those synthetic, brought them down here on 1 through 16, but then we had to buy 8 more, obviously.
Gotcha.
And so they end up being just a little bit, different in age. So
Was that Lakewood?
yes,
Yeah.
Lakewood, yes. So,
I feel like we talk about this a lot, Sue, that the characteristics of the construction of the bowling centers for reasons like that wind up coming into play an awful lot.
Oh, sure.
Transit, we talked about that because there was expansion that added on, and that's been the story at a lot of other places.
And what's surprising is some of the bowlers that have spent a lot of time in centers know all this. Like Jack at Transit will be able to tell you that 23 goes longer than 24, and then 29 and 30 doesn't carry as well as same thing as I remember with Tonawanda, we used to know the pairs that carried better than the others, and you're there. They truly do have characteristics, the lanes.
they do.
Remember Thruway? I mean, Thruway had 60 lanes, and from bowling that summer sweeper year after year after year, people knew the lanes.
Yeah, when we took the lanes out of Lakewood, we marked them. So, so lane 1 synthetic here, it was lane 1 synthetic at Lakewood. I heard a story a couple weeks ago that somebody moved synthetics and they didn't mark them, so they're all over the place. So each pair is because like you said, they developed their
So
own
the pairs were never together.
They never matched.
Yeah, they weren't put back together.
Right.
So some pairs are just dead opposite. Even if you oil them the same, you got the topography and,
Right.
and how they were
worn.
Yeah, how they were worn. Yeah, so you should really keep them together the best you can.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. 8th frame now for Rusty Martin. Again, lots of wobble on the 10, and it won't go down.
All right, we're going to keep this interesting. I want to say first guy to double was going to be the winner, but it might be the first guy to strike.
Yeah, you're right. It's there haven't been a lot of strikes early on, other than Tim early on, as you can see on the Castellone scoreboard. Way left, all the way to way right, gets Rusty the spare. So let's see if the guy who says he's not interesting can make this interesting with the way he finishes here. I don't think he liked it.
No, he way pulled that.
Kind of knew it as soon as he threw it. If you likely could hear him kind of yell at the pins as soon as he threw it.
Well, the good thing is he made a really bad shot, but he only left a single pin spare, and that leaves him well in this match, since nobody seems to be striking at will.
Spare in the ninth for Rusty. So now he'll see how Tim will finish up, and he'll know what he has to do to try to win this in the 10th. Meanwhile, Tim can take that out of the equation with how strong he'll finish here.
Exactly right. Tim's got that one little extra pin that could make a difference.
Both guys have been throwing it hard. We've got a couple of 19-mile-an-hour throws here, and both guys have been pretty consistent with their speed. Guys are young and full of energy, right? They should be throwing at 19, 20 miles an hour. There's a nice big clutch strike for Tim Frenz.
Well, that's Tim's good lane. He needed to strike on it, and he did, which is good. But now, here we are, back to 17.
It's been a trouble lane for everybody today.
He is trying to figure out right now what he is going to do to try to strike.
What's buried under there, under lane 17 there, Jim? That's you got something going on there you haven't told us over there?
Not that I know, but it's been there
like
a long time.
Like the voodoo doll of bowling, of lanes here at the Jamestown Bowling Company?
Oh.
Good shot. Tried to catch a little bit more of the dry.
Good clutch strike for Tim Frenz to start the 10th. If you're going to wear pants like that, you better finish strong,
All right, so by my calculations, he needs a strike here to shut Rusty completely out. All right.
Boy, that 4-pin has made lots of appearances here in the last couple of minutes, hasn't it?
Yeah, the 4 and the 10. So he spares this up, and the best that Rusty can do is tie him.
Of course. We haven't had one of those in a while.
Well, you will now, because we started talking about it.
All right.
All right, Tim does what he needs to. And Tim puts the 226 on the board. So Rusty will have a chance to tie. And there you can see it for yourself on the Castellone scoreboard.
And Tim will win.
Yep, and that, again, an unusual 5-pin. We haven't seen that happen much at all, and that one just get away from Rusty a little bit?
No, it's just a light hit and a little paralyzer.
Yeah, I don't think he got it out like he's been getting it out.
Yeah.
And just
It could have went.
So it's a win for Tim Frenz, 2 in a row, and he's the guy that will advance back to Buffalo in 2 weeks to bowl again at the Tonawanda Bowling Center, Tonawanda Lane. So a good win for Tim Frenz, tough one for Rusty Martin. We'll talk to both guys and get you ready for next week's show when we all return to Jamestown. More Beat the Champ right after this. Well, it was an interesting match by the guy who says he's not very interesting, and you come right down to the end there, Rusty. That's all you really want. What happened on that one where you leave the 5-pin? What happened there?
I think I just got a little bit slow inside. I mean, it was a close game the whole way through. I mean, a couple of carries on the 7-pin here or there. It could have been the other way, or could have missed the 7-pin, which I was expecting to do if I left any. But I'll take this as experience, I guess. You know?
All right, well, 2 appearances here on the show. You continue to get better and more competitive.
At least today was clean.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not another year from now that we see you next time, but we know we're going to expect even more out of you.
Absolutely.
So, Jim?
Hey, Rusty. Thanks, Jim. It was good bowling. It's nice you can make it 2 years in a row. Hopefully you can keep it up and maybe catch some of the other qualifiers, too.
Maybe.
All right, Tim didn't know where to stand, right, Sue?
Yeah, it's the first time on this side. Finally got that monkey off your back. Does it feel good?
Yeah, it feels good to finally get a W under there and not have to go against my same nemesis. But yeah, I mean, it was great bowling by both of the guys. Definitely wasn't. None of them are easy matches coming right down to the 10th frame. So it was a good experience out here this month with all the competitors.
And I think Jim's got some money for you because next time you'll be at Tonawanda.
Okay, bowling, and hope you'll see it again next year.
Absolutely, I'll be back.
Yeah, so we're not done with Tim yet. We're going to see him on next week's show, and then we definitely are going to see him in 2 weeks because Tim's our guy that advances up to Tonawanda when we move the show up there. Sue and I will wrap up week 3 here in Jamestown, get you ready for our 4th show. When we all come back, Beat the Champ on the road in Jamestown. More right after this. 3 weeks of competition from here in Jamestown in the books for Beat the Champ. But I think the one thing that stood out over 3 weeks is the fact that no one in particular stood out.
Right, we had a few streaks that occurred, but I think that the lanes were trying enough that they had to work very hard, and I think fatigue actually became part of what happened out here today. So it gave an opportunity for somebody else to come about. And then, it was just very exhausting today.
Yeah, and ultimately, as we talk a lot about the test of the bowlers in figuring out the lanes, the conditions, one's better, one's worse, that really wound up being a big story through the course of these 3 weeks.
It did, and the lanes being different. And one played different than the other. You had to constantly know where you were standing, what your approach was. Then all of a sudden your shot would go away. So, I'm guessing that they'll be happy to wrap this up, go home, get a nap, and take it on again in 2 weeks.
Yes, but we're not done yet because we're going to have a little fun with a little doubles competition.
Yeah.
A lot of the names that we've had on the show the last 3 weeks are coming back for us next week. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and these guys are going to team up. Like you said, some of them we've seen in this competition so far in Jamestown, and maybe they'll have some redemption in pairs.
Yeah, maybe we'll see if a little Jamestown advantage for some of those guys comes into play. That's next week's show when we have a little fun here on Beat the Champ.